the movie review that we have for you guys today. Kyler and I, amongst others, were fortunate enough to see Avatar: The Way of Water in Dolby 3D during its opening weekend, and we'd like to bring you our review here right now. I'm going to let Kyler go first on this one because he feels slightly less on the movie than me. Kyler, go on.
I'd like to preface this by saying, go to my YouTube channel for my full review and breakdown of the plot, the positives, and the negatives.
Yes.
Generally speaking, I think the movie's fine. I think it is an okay movie. I think, let's start with the positives that I have, which are at a high level, the CGI. It's obviously going to look great. It's especially in Dolby 3D.
Yeah.
There were parts in the movie where I was actually doing this because I thought there was something in front of me, and it was just the movie.
Yeah.
Like, it's the technology has come so far, and James Cameron knows how to push it to the limit.
Yeah. And
he does a great job with that.
The difference between post-converting 3D and shooting a movie that's designed to be 3D is immaculate.
Yes, definitely. The CGI is amazing. The other main positive that I have for it is the action. I think movies that have really good action are movies that give the audience a clear sense of where everyone is at during the scene. Movies like The Raid that I mentioned earlier, movies like Lord of the Rings, they do a fantastic job with their war scenes. You can tell exactly what's happening. I'd argue movies like 1917 or Hacksaw Ridge, they both do very good jobs of showing a war happening, and you can understand where people are at the entire time it's going on. This movie does a really good job of that as well. You know exactly where the characters are at, what their motivation is during the action scene, how they're going to get to their resolution. Now, going into the negatives, which I would argue very much outweigh the positives, is the plot, the dialogue, and the length. It's almost 3.5 hours long. That's way too long. Oh no, he cut it down for 12 hours. I don't care. Don't shoot 12 hours of footage then. The plot is very confusing in that they give very one-dimensional traits to the characters. Without going too far into the spoilers, the dad, Jake Sully, he's like, my job is to protect my family, and that's it. That's his thought the entire time from start to finish. I get it. You're a complex character who literally changed species, and you're in a new planet. Like, give me more. Give me the struggle that you're having internally. Give me, how is that affecting you? It doesn't go into anything. The plot also has a driving force that halfway through the movie you're like, wait, why is this happening? Like, we walked out of the theater. I'm like, can you explain what happened? You're like, well, they didn't really explain it. Well, yeah, maybe it should get explained, especially if I'm sitting there for 3.5 hours, or at least give me an intermission. The narration, there's so much narration.
First movie had that as well, yeah.
It's insane. And then the dialogue. It sounds like the dialogue it sounds like the dialogue was written 12 years ago and that they didn't know how to fix it. They're like, just leave it in. It's fine.
We got VFX to worry about.
Exactly. And I got into a conversation with my stepdad about it where we're like, is this targeted to you as an audience member? I was like, I don't know. It's Avatar. It's the biggest movie. It's the sequel to the biggest movie ever. I would assume he's kind of targeting everyone in the world.
Yeah.
So when you target that wide of a net, maybe it's missing on some, but then it hits on others. I think the movie focuses way too much on the CGI and trying to bank on that being its biggest takeaway. Like, come watch the movie because it's beautiful. Okay. Give me a story. They didn't give me a story. They didn't give me a good story, at least. And on Letterboxd, I'm always on Letterboxd, so it has a 3.9. That's insanely high. That's insanely high. Everyone that I follow that's like a movie critic or movie reviewer, they're all giving it 4.5 stars. Like, you're not thinking critically about the movie. Someone that I follow that's like a movie reviewer. They said James Cameron delivers on his title promise. The movie was definitely wetter than Titanic. 4 stars. You're like, how is that 4 stars? Like, this took 12 years to come out, 13 years to something like that. It's supposed to be the sequel to the biggest movie ever, and then they give me a storyline like that. They give me characters that are one-dimensional. They give me a 3.5-hour movie where you're left unsatisfied by the end, other than just the spectacle that you saw, which again was beautiful. I don't think it outweighs the movie though. I can't ignore the faults.
Yeah. Well, I thought you felt slightly less on me. You feel a little bit more less than I thought as compared to my thoughts. But where I think the only place we really differ is just how the negatives affected your experience. But I don't disagree with most of your negatives. What I would say is, to echo your sentiments on the positives, the visual effects. According to Letterboxd, I'll plug Letterboxd as well, I've seen over 3,000 movies. Of the 3,000 movies I've seen, this has the best visual effects I've ever seen. That I've ever seen. And I hate 3D. I'm so fucking happy I saw this movie in 3D. Like, it was insane how well done it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I usually hate when movies have different frame rates. This movie Yahtzeed like 7 different frame rates throughout the whole movie, and I thought it worked really well. For the most part, I thought it worked really well. In regard to the story, here's what I'll say. Everything that you just said is kind of how I feel about the first Avatar movie. In that movie glosses over, I have a twin brother who's dead, but since my genetic code is the exact same and they really need this project to go forward, they chose me in like 2 minutes. And I'm like, that's so interesting. I would love to spend some time with that concept. Like, what the hell?
Mm-hmm.
But this movie, while I agree the faults of the movie are in its, not the story, the way it tells the story. Like, the narration I also hate. And I have a feeling every single Avatar movie is going to do it because the first 2 have done it and they keep making money. So they probably won't stop doing that. But where I'll disagree with you is I think the story of this film is much better than the story of the first film. And I was along for the ride during this story. Now, is the story simple? Absolutely. It's a very simple story. It's bad people back, we run, we meet new tribe, we learn to hunt like new tribe, we use new skills from new tribe to fight. That's the story. It's not a new story, it's a familiar story, kind of like how Avatar 1 was just Pocahontas in space.
Mm-hmm.
This story is also familiar. But I don't think familiar necessarily means poor. Where I'll meet you with the dialogue is I think every human character, here's what it is, Kyler. The fundamental problem with the Avatar movies. They convince me through movie magic that the Na'vi are real. I don't think the human characters are real. I think they are cartoon characters because of how they speak, because their dialogue is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it's one thing if it's one character.
It's like G.I. Joe dialogue.
And it's one thing if one character spoke like that. They all speak like that. Like another James Cameron movie, Aliens. The reason why Bill Paxton's character is great is because he's the only character that speaks like that. Mm-hmm. And everyone else around him is like, God, like this guy, you know. Every human character is like that. Most of the human actors, I mean, they're all human actors. Jesus, see, Na'vi are real. But like all of the actors who are not Na'vi, most of them don't do very good jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, that is the only like big flaw with this world and with this movie to me. Like you said, the action sequences are phenomenal. The story, the way that it expands on the world and you get to live in this world, I liked the length of the movie, personally. You know how I feel? I love cutting stuff out of movies. I'm like, that can go, that can go, that can go.
I think a 3-hour-long movie can work. I love Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically the extended cuts.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all 3 hours long.
Yeah.
There's something driving the movie forward, scene after scene after scene, where you want to keep watching and uncovering what's next.
Mm-hmm.
This movie doesn't do that. It drags. It feels like it takes a long time. And I know James Cameron had his thing in Masterclass, which if you guys are watching this, you've probably seen that too, which is, if I want to watch it because I just want to watch it because of the way it looks, then other people probably do too. Sure, I'm sure other people want to watch that. I don't.
Yeah. I see exactly what you're saying. Where I'll disagree is normally whenever when I criticize a movie for its length or that it drags too long or I think it's too long, I immediately go with it's too long and you could cut this scene and you wouldn't lose anything in the movie. I don't think there's a scene in Avatar 2 that can be cut.
They could cut the entire montage scene when they first get to the water tribe.
See, I don't think so. I think that's really important to the movie, especially later on. With
they could cut
you have to sell that relationship.
Am I allowed to get into spoilers right now? It made $430 million. Can I get into spoilers a little bit?
Let's be vague.
The daughter, a lot of her stuff in the movie, just in general around her and her spirits and her abilities and whatever, none of it comes to fruition at the end in what they set up. They do affect the movie in very minuscule ways, but not in how they were alluding to. They had a whole scene, 2 scenes around what she can and can't do anymore and how it's going to, how it could be very threatening to people or her or whatever. Never brought up again. They set stakes for no reason, so just cut all that stuff out. That could have saved a lot of time. So I'm sure that there's other things that I could bring up, but I don't want to get too far into spoilers. But do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you're saying.
Okay.
And I'm not using this as an excuse. I'm just thinking as to why it wasn't cut. Is because I have a feeling in the other Avatar sequels that's gonna come into play. But it's not an excuse for it being. But even
if you're gonna set it up in the movie.
But even then, but to me, even then, when you're like, oh well, it didn't do what it alluded to, but it still did something. It still came through.
No, but it didn't, and that's why I can't get too far into it right now.
All right, at the very end of the review, we'll go into it.
Okay.
But I just quickly want to say, overall, I really liked the movie. I was very taken aback by it because I was not the biggest fan of the first Avatar movie. I don't hate the first Avatar movie, but Avatar, when it came out, was one of those things where everyone was like, oh my God, Avatar, Avatar, Avatar. And I was like, I mean, it was all right, which is kind of how you feel on this movie. But it worked for me. I think it just connected with me on an emotional level, and it was a genuine experience. And I think on that level, it worked for me. And it's not without its flaws. Another flaw I'll give you, there's 2 actors who you think could not be able to come back to this movie who were in the first movie that come back. One story reason for them coming back I bought, and I was like, that's very interesting. One was ridiculous, and I was like, no. Just no.
Can you tell me who you're referring to?
All right, we're going to get into spoilers now. So spoiler alert for Avatar 2, and then you can do your thing.
Okay.
Bringing back Sigourney Weaver, I thought was very well done. That was interesting. They didn't know that the body was pregnant, and it gives birth to a girl, and then that's Sigourney Weaver playing the teenager. I'm like, that's very interesting. Stephen Lang, the general, coming back, I was like, no. Like, that makes 0 sense. Because then they did a whole, here's what you can cut. They did a whole exposition scene where he's talking to his younger self on the computer of like, when you wake up, that means I'm dead. That you got to make sure you have your memory.
His character didn't make sense, and the problem was his character was the main antagonist for the entire movie.
Yeah.
And there was no reason for him. Period.
Yeah, and
and he's the main antagonist that, if anything, drives the movie forward.
Yeah,
because the Jake Sully and the family, they're not driving anything. They're just trying to live their lives. They're like, man, I just have a family. I want to protect my family, and I want to live in the water now because I'm protecting my family from this crazy general who, for some reason, has the entire backing of humanity saying, "We'll fund this. We'll let you kill him for apparently no reason. Just go get your Go get your minerals. Go get your whale brain stuff. Go colonize. Why do you have to follow this guy around and start burning down hundreds? Like, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
You could tell at the end of the movie they're setting up like a redemption arc for him. And I'm just like, why? Why are we doing this?
Yeah, the way they set that up, it's like so unsubtle because they have that spider kid who may or may not be his son or whatever.
It definitely was his son.
Yeah, I know. But, and then he's like, you've been horrible this whole time, but okay, I'll save your life.
You're my dad.
Yeah. And then he saves him, and then this guy's like, come on, son, thinking that maybe the son is going to be a part of his life now, and they're going to rule the world together for some reason. And then he's like, no, I hate you. Like, leave him. You didn't kill him.
Yeah.
You didn't have to do anything.
Yeah.
It was so dumb.
Yeah.
That whole character was dumb. And the problem was the movie relied too much on that character.
Go into your thing that you were going to earlier that I told you to be vague on.
Yeah, so the older sister.
Yeah. The Sigourney Weaver one?
Yep.
Okay.
Sigourney Weaver's daughter.
Mm-hmm.
She has some special ability where at one point in the movie she connects to the spirit tree underwater. And she like starts having a electrical circuit break, like her lights are going on and off, like literally, and then she has a seizure and they're like, man, we don't know what to do. So then they get the scientists in, which they came out of nowhere all of a sudden. That was weird. And then the Kate Winslet's character was like, I'm gonna go do some acupuncture, like spirit stuff, and then she revives. They're like, hey, you can't do. They explicitly say she cannot connect to the spirit tree anymore. If she does, she will die. But like, they make a very, very keen point to bring that up. So the whole time, at the end, when the eclipse happens again, and the first time she had the seizure, the eclipse happened. She connected, and that's when everything went haywire. The eclipse happens. The climax is happening with the fight scenes at the end. Everyone's in turmoil. She's the only one that can maybe do something to help save them. You're like, oh, everything's adding up. She's in the water. She's the only one that can do something. So maybe she's going to have to risk her life by connecting to the spirit tree to like try and do something and save her family. The eclipse is happening. So everything is set up in the same exact way and the same order. So it feels very much like they were setting up for that. And then they didn't do it. Instead, she did this wavy thing with her hand, had some light shrimp-looking krill thing go and find her mom, screw the dad and the brother, I guess, and then she used the underwater breathe ability thing that everyone has. But she didn't bring multiple. She brought one for herself, and then went to go find the mom. You're like, what happened there? It was so unfulfilling. It was so unwarranted. It was so unnecessary to bring up any of the previous stuff. Unless you're planning to include it in future movies. However, they did it horribly. Something that they didn't do horribly was introducing her as being Sigourney Weaver's daughter, because you're going to learn more about that in future movies, and you could tell that was just a seed being planted. In this movie, they made too big of a point with what I just mentioned for it to be in future movies. That should have been paid off in this movie.
No, that I agree with. I didn't know that's what you were referring to. I thought you were referring to her just being at one with the spiritual world of the underwater.
I'm sure that's going to come up time and time again.
Yeah.
But that specific
thing I wasn't even thinking
because
about. Because
there were multiple scenes. There were there's like probably a good 10 minutes of this stuff going on where they explicitly say, basically to the audience, she can't do this anymore. And then you're like, oh man, she's gonna have to do it at the end, and then she doesn't do it.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, no, I didn't even think about that. I also think emotionally. Now that we're just doing spoilers, I'll just do this briefly. The oldest son dying, I felt. Now, and it sucked because you could tell Jake was really affected by it, but he had to be the one that was like, we gotta go. But like, the relationship with the oldest brother and the youngest brother, especially. You know what I noticed? I make so many movies about brothers. I do not have a brother. But like that relationship I really felt throughout the movie, and the oldest brother dying was really emotionally impactful, and I think will be a good new set point for the arcs of the rest of the families going forward. And I liked the Water Tribe a lot. I thought they were funny as hell. I liked the dad leader. I don't know. Just something about him was just like
It all felt
cool.
very. I liked it, and I also felt like it was very cheesy too. But not in a bad way. Just in a okay.
Like
it's
this
a little
is
cheesy, but it's not like bad cheesy.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And with the brother dying, yeah, that was really good. How they handled it. I think I think they wrote themselves into a corner though, and that's why he died.
Yeah,
they wrote themselves into a corner in that the dad was just an asshole the entire time to the other son, and they were like, man, how do we get this son to stop being on a shit list? Kill the other brother. That's how it felt.
Yeah.
So, and then even when he died, he's like, where were you? You're like, dude, what do you mean, where was I?
Yeah.
Like, do you want me to jump in front of the bullet? Like, I didn't see it. Sorry. It was, I get what they were doing, but again, it just leads back to the characters are so one-dimensional that it doesn't leave room for any gray. It's black and white for everything, apparently. And that's how the whole movie felt.
I see that. And I think they're achieving arcs through black and white, but I do agree that there's no gray. And I do hope that through the sequels, because I think you could create a very interesting gray with the other brother. Like, I honestly feel like you could do a storyline of him joining the Sky People. I think you could explore that. Granted, I have no idea if that's what they're going to do, but yeah, regardless. Thank you for giving me your thoughts on Avatar: The Way of Water, Kyler. I like it more than he does. I did overall enjoy the movie. I liked it a lot. It might be in my top 10 of the year. But
whoa.
Yeah,
you
but
haven't seen enough movies this year.
I've seen just the same amount as you.